welcome to Deep Mountain Security. Today we're going to be discussing some recent attacks by a botnet that uses SSH protocols to do cryptocurrency mining on Linux boxes. So today I've got an Ubuntu box right here and a Fedora box right here, and we're going to be playing around inside of these. So we're going to start off on our Ubuntu box. So the way this attack works is it looks for SSH boxes and terminals that are using unsecure passwords or are otherwise easy to compromise. So I'm going to show you how to protect yourself from some of these things. So we're going to be doing everything in a command line today because command lines are fantastic. And I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger here so you can see more of what's going on. So to start, so I've already installed OpenSSH-Server on this box. It's quite possible that you will not, if you're running Ubuntu at least, you're most likely don't have SSH running on your box, so you're most likely not vulnerable to these attacks in the first place. However, let's go ahead and begin by typing netstat and then -lnp, and lnp, if I can spell netstat right. What LNP does is it just specifies some of the different information that we want down here, telling that we want like the process name and whatnot. So you're going to notice right off the bat here on the ports that are currently active, we've got a listening status on port 22. So that lets me know that SSH is currently running on this box. Now, one thing I can do to test that is if I happen to have another box. So here we've got our Fedora box. I'm going to go ahead and open up a terminal. I can try SSHing into that other machine. And then you want to make sure that you specify who you're logging in as. That your username that you have has privileges to do that. And then our current port is 22, so you don't actually have to add that if you don't want to. And it's going to ask for a password. And we're in. So SSH is obviously running. And now I'm just going to say for a lot of business users or consumers who are a little more in depth into Linux terminology and working, you probably already know most of this or what I'm explaining today with configuring stuff like this. I'm just going to close this out real quick. And however, for some of the more beginning users, I'm kind of going to go a little bit more in depth into this. And so beginning users are probably not going to have a lot of this stuff running or installed, and you're probably going to be just fine. But we already have this running here. So since it's running and we can see it's running, the first thing, so if you're a standard user and you happen to see this process running or this port open on your machine, you can block it from being used if you don't plan on SSHing into your box. So if you see it running and you want to block it, because you can do that, we're going to use something called the uncomplicated firewall. This is built into Ubuntu by default. So we're going to actually sudo. So sudo allows me to run administrative privileges or root privileges, and then UFW. And we're just going to check its status real quick. And it looks like, if I typed it right, that it's currently inactive. So if you run that again, you just see it's just currently inactive. So the first thing we want to do is enable the uncomplicated firewall. So we can go sudo UFW enable, and then now it's enable inactive on system startup. So we can check its status again. Its status is currently active. So now if we go back to our other box, you can see that if we try SSHing into it now, it's not going to work. So let's go back over here. If we go and run our netstat-lnp, you can see it's still there. However, our firewall is currently blocking it. If we try it again, it still shouldn't work. We can even try specifying the port here. But you're going to see it's still not working. And that's because we enabled the firewall. So before we can do that, we have to change the firewall to allow it through. So we can go sudo ufw allow 22. So that's allowing rule 22. So now if we go check our status, you can see we're currently allowing port 22. So if we go back over to here and try running this again, it works perfectly. We're not going to log in actually. But so what you can do is you can actually change this allow to deny. And if we go check our status again, now you can see that port 22 is being denied. So if we go back to over here, we're going to go over here, and it's just going to sit there and try to work, but it's not going to do anything because it can't. So that's how you deny it. So on a more secure system, like over here, we can run netstat -lnp again. And let me make this a little bit bigger. And you can see here that port 22 is active, and that is because I have activated it. So that way we can be running this. So if it's not currently active, one thing you can do is actually start the service. So here on Fedora, not necessarily every version of Red Hat has this. However, sometimes if this isn't running and you do want it running, you can actually start it by going sudo service sshd, which is the SSH daemon, or daemon, however you want to say that, for starting things. So sudo service sshd start, and then it'll ask you for your password. If I type it right. And it'll be started now. So we can actually get the status on that by going sudo service sshd status. And here's our current status. It looks like it's running and active. So it's fairly obvious that that's what's running here on port 22. So so we can also do the same thing we did on our other machine over there. UFW, or the uncomplicated firewall, isn't currently installed, but we can install that if we want to by going sudo yum install UFW. I'll just run a search instead for UFW, and you can see that here it is, UFW, and it's pretty much ready for install. So we could go yum install UFW, and it would ask you, do you want to install it? I'm just going to say no, because we're not going to worry about that right now. But I could go yes, and then all the commands would be the same as they were in Ubuntu. However, so the most important thing you can do for securing yourself against these attacks is to change your password. That's the #1 most important thing you can do, is change your password to something secure. Don't use passwords, use passphrases. The current password settings and standards as given by NIST, which is the they're the ones who create all the standards, international standards on all kinds of stuff. So because they're the ones that make all the international standards for all kinds of stuff, they also make password standards. So recently, or somewhat recently, this is in the last few months or so, they've come out with new documentation saying that complex passwords are not desirable. What you actually want are lengthy passphrases. Make your passwords longer. I recommend a minimum of about 18 to 20 characters at least, and just use however you want. You can have it as a sentence. You can have it. You can put some numbers in there if you want to, or special characters like exclamation points and dollar signs and whatnot. Although some places don't like it when you use that. So just make it long passwords. I made a password once. It was 4 words and approximately 30 characters long. Just these 4 words with spaces in between. So that's the thing, is they're trying to brute force your SSH port by guessing at usernames and passwords until they finally get through. And once they get through, they have access to your system and they run their stuff, and they use your system for mining cryptocurrencies, which you don't really want, because, well, you don't want anyone having access to your system. It's your system. So that's the first thing you can do, is by having better passwords. The second thing you can do, which we're going to do right here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to change the port that we're currently using here. So I'm going to change directories to the etc folder, and I'm just going to ls to show you everything. So the etc folder is fairly large and has all kinds of stuff in here. This is where most of your program binaries and configs are actually stored. Okay, so not all the binaries. It's kind of complex how everything's in different applications store stuff in different locations. However, all your config files are generally in the etc folder. So I'm going to, so if you noticed, we've got an SSHD in here somewhere, which can be annoying to find. There it is, SSH. So we're going to actually run ls again, and I'm actually going to grep SSH just to show you that you can, so grep is kind of like a filter for text. So you can see we've got SSH right there. So I'm going to change directories to SSH. We're going to see what's in here again. So you're going to notice that we've got quite a number of things in here. So the file that we want to play around with is this sshd config, because this is what manages the configuration for our SSH daemon, which we use for other computers to log into ourselves. So I'm going to modify the file, and most likely you need permissions to do so. So we're going to do sudo again, and then vi sshd config. Now, you don't have to use vi. You can use vim or nano or Emacs or whatever your preferred command line text editor is. I like vi. I actually use a number of things. And we're going to go down to this line right here, which says port 22. And then I'm going to get rid of the hashtag, which comments out the line. And we're going to change port 22 to another port. This is one of the second most important things you can do, is don't use a default port. Use something other than default, because that helps protect you even more and lessens your attack service, because people who leave things as default settings generally have the most attack potential. I've gone around to places and attempted to access things on purpose, and when I find something that's running default ports and using a username and password of admin or admin and then password of some sort, which is just very simple and easy to guess, it tells me that somebody didn't really care about securing the system when they first set it up. However, we care about our system, so we're going to change to a port. Let's change it to 5999, because that sounds like a good port to me. And then I'm going to write my changes and quit. And we're going to restart the SSH daemon. So we're going to go sudo service sshd restart, and that's going to restart our service. One thing to note is sometimes this might not restart depending on how you have your everything set up. Sometimes you might need to allow a port before you can actually use it. So for example, in this case we would go sudo, and then it's se manage port -a for allow -t ssh underscore port underscore t -p. We're specifying that it's a TCP port, and then it's 5999. And this is telling the Linux box that we're allowing this port to be used on our system. So it's allowing it and making it available for an application. So we can go ahead and do this, and if it's already there, then it's going to say it's already defined. Otherwise, it's going to say, okay, we can go ahead and allow that. And then you can most likely go to restart your service, and it'll restart just fine. So now if we run netstat again, -lnp, and scroll up, you're going to notice that we don't have that port 22 hiding in here anymore. Now we've got port 5999. So if we go back to our Ubuntu box here, and it looks like it timed out on us. That's what I get for talking forever. We can now go SSH, and I'm going to go admin at 192.168.75.130, because that's the machine. And if I just leave it at defaults, it's not going to work, because you'll notice here default port is 22. So instead we have to specify our port 5999, in which case it'll say, do you want to connect? We can say yes, enter our password. I can't type passwords right today. It's not even that complex. And it'll say we're in. So you notice we're in. If I type in who am I, you'll notice, or admin, and we're not in our, well, that doesn't do us any good, does it? Let's exit out of there, and you'll notice we're back in Ubuntu again, in which my username is administrator instead of admin. So So two most important things to protect yourself. If you don't use SSH, then either don't install it, or if it's already installed, check to see if it's currently open. If it's open and you don't use SSH, then you can go ahead and block it. If you do use SSH and it's open, then take steps to secure it, such as changing your password and the port that you use. If you don't have the port open, but you use SSH, you kind of need the port open, so open it up anyways, I suppose. So yeah, two most important things to do if you're using if you don't using SSH, then just block the port altogether. Don't allow any SSH connections. If you do use SSH, have lengthy passphrases. I can't say that. Passphrases, and make sure to change your port number. Just that'll keep any hacking and intrusion attempts less likely to guess the correct port without actually running a scan on your system. Most of the way these botnets work currently is they're just looking for default anything that they can find, just really quickly testing a bunch of IP addresses or DNS domain names and all kinds of stuff. However, if you happen to be the 80% of people that don't, if you're not in the category of the 80% who don't change their thing, then you're in the 20%ers, and I don't know if the statistics are accurate or not, who are less likely to get attempt attacks or attacks attempted on your system by this botnet here. So just my recommendation, lengthy passphrases, and also don't forget to change your port number. It's not too terribly hard, and if there's anything you saw in here today that you want a video on specifically, go ahead, let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching here at Deep Mountain Security. Don't forget to like and subscribe.